any kind of like possibility of logic and reason as consistent with some form of metaphysical naturalism would have to include something like the accounting of the faculty of analysis itself, right? Like whenever you're providing reasons for that faculty itself would have to be consistent with metaphysical naturalism. What I've come to realize over the past few months is that whenever you are attempting to do that, it has to be consistent with something which precludes anything that is not inclusive of claims about, physics, physics and the particularities of the domain of physics, right? That's the project discernible. That is the metaphysical project
that's not mine.
That is too much of. Well, it certainly is because you're a naturalist discernible. You reject
not the way you're thinking.
You reject the metaphysical is the point. Objects are real pointed this out earlier in that accepting metaphysical naturalism is necessarily entailing the rejection of that which circumscribes all of nature, right? And therefore reason itself, in a sense.
So like when I say I reject metaphysics, what I'm rejecting is that there's like a mind-independent, necessary structure of the world. That there's something in the world that's necessary and mind-independent. I don't know, like a final cause, maybe. You can probably list all your own favorite metaphysical categories. This is what I think doesn't have to be thought about in order to make sense of the world.
So we believe that the reason logic is universal and is the case in all possible worlds, even without human and begotten creatures, is because it's mental. It comes from a mind. I mean, what is logic outside of mind? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Like, because logic is defined insofar as it's deduced.
It's a condition of a being contingent. It's a condition of a contingent object.
What kind of object? Sorry.
A contingent one that can become what it's not.
So now you're saying logic is contingent on conscious being?
No.
Okay.
Logic is a condition of being a contingent entity. So if a rock can become a different color or not a rock, right, then it can't already be what it's not.
Well, logic isn't that. That's the stone. That's the properties of the stone. Logic is the thing above all of the system that allows this or that to be. But logic itself isn't in the stone.
He's confusing the map with the territory again.
Yeah, logic is not contingent at all on the stone. It's the logic is the reason the stone cannot be a tree simultaneously.
Can you imagine a stone becoming a tree?
I mean, I said simultaneously a tree. The stone isn't.
And that's why I'm asking. Can you imagine it becoming a tree?
I mean, you can manipulate matter on all kinds of ways. I don't know. Maybe you could do some experiment in the future and make it into some tree or something. But
right.
That's just
and
that
can
doesn't
you think
matter.
a stone as being a stone and not a stone?
No.
Right.
No. The thing is,
contingent object is that it's non-contradictory.
Well, no. Look, what you were saying is that logic is contingent on those things. And that's just false.
No. Well, maybe not in the sense you're thinking.
So discernible. We do ask the atheists, though, to stop making truth claims. I think that's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, they
why would I do that?
presuppose a lot that they can't even prove just to give us their opinionated, disconnected, reductive opinion of reality.
Why would I do that?
Well, you can talk in contradiction if you like, as if you somehow can secure the true state of affairs. But in reality, all you're doing is giving us an arbitrarily reductive picture of the world founded in ignorance. Now you're free to do that.
What's arbitrary about it?
In that it's from you, and you have no way to connect it to something external to confirm that anything you're thinking is actually the case. Again, all you can give us is a reductive interfacial opinion.
Yeah, discernible. I point to Malpass, who said something to the effect of the materialist, the physicalist lacks any kind of metaphysical richness in order that could account for things like logic or the qualities of experience. There is nothing there, metaphysically speaking, that could bridge that gap. Whereas Malpass
Yeah, I
admits
agree.
the God believer has the full richness to account for all of that stuff. Because it ain't going to be recoverable in materialism or
You don't need to
physicalism.
talk about richness. All you need is an omnipotent God, right? That's all you need for that. An
Well,
omnipotent God can do whatever. That explains everything.
Well, you ain't getting it from matter. You're not getting it from purposeless matter, non-conscious matter.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
Complete is something a substrate totally devoid of consciousness and experience and qualities isn't
Yeah, I think it's
going to
very
get you
possible
there.
we don't do that.
Well, you would be on the right track if you reject that idea.
But you must know why I think that.
Of course I do.
Which
we really
is-
don't care what atheists think, and that's the problem is they think without like grounding. So, thank you for
Oh.
your opinion.
But by the way, Bach, you see what I posted in side chat?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
Discernible.
you should have a look.
Just come on, man. Just let's just have a reasonable conversation. Discernible. Come on, man.
Wait,
Discernible, you've been
what's
attacking-
unreasonable about quoting Leibniz?
Well, you've had a very
Wait, don't you deny the PSR?
I do.
Okay, so what's your point?
So that's from the monadology, right? That's his definition of the PSR. Do you see the word contingent in there?
Not in that phrase, no, but I can show you a video where they quote him talking about it in relation to contingencies if you'd like. So, I mean,
Okay,
sure,
find
you can
find the
quote him
citation.
out of context. Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah,
Hey,
I can't find a video. Yes, where they quote him. Yeah,
discernible. Did your mother and father beat the hell out of you when you were a kid? Because I don't think they did.
No, I pass on whatever I got from them to your mom.
Oh, that was a good. Oh man, that was a good one.
hey,
You got me.
So you can see the second thing I posted, right? So the PSR for Leibniz governs God's choices.
what? The PSR governs God's choices. What are you talking about?
I posted it in side chat.
Let's see. Now, as there are an infinity of possible universes and the ideas of God, and only one of them can exist. Well, I don't even disagree, or I don't necessarily agree with them on there. There must be a sufficient reason for God's choice determining him to be. Well, I disagree with Leibniz on that. And here's the thing: even if
Wait, but we had a whole discussion where you
No.
were telling me I was wrong about Leibniz.
well, you were.
But there's the citations for you, and you disagree with Leibniz. That's fine. I'm not out to defend Leibniz, but there's your citations.
Here's the thing, but no, here's the thing, and maybe Leibniz changed his views on this because from what I've read and seen of Leibniz, and I can provide you sources, that he did get into the issue of like aseity versus contingent. And so he said, yeah, like this then can only apply to contingencies. And here's the thing, even if Leibniz did actually not mention contingencies, which again, that goes against everything I've looked into on it, I would just run it differently. I would say that it couldn't work in relation to aseitist things, but it's valuable in relation to contingent things because that which is aseitist cannot have an explanation in the same way or it wouldn't be ultimate. This is why they say ultimates must be circular by nature. They cannot be ultimates.
And there's a further citation there. So I've provided 3 citations now. And this further one, right, is saying that a series of contingent things, each one has a sufficient reason, has to terminate in a being that is its own sufficient reason.
What's that?
So
Say that
that is
again?
sufficient reason for the existence of the universe cannot be found in a series of contingent things. That is, of bodies and their representations and so.
So what's your point, though? What's your contention with me that you're trying to point out here again?
That
He
the
never had
PSR
one.
for Leibniz does apply to God.
what he's saying
well,
is
let me
that
look this
God,
up.
if you read what he posted, there's in the ideas of God there are an infinite number of possible universes, But for some reason, God only chose one universe. And what Leibniz is saying, according to what he posted, is therefore there was some kind of reason pushing God to choose this one unique universe, as if God was sort of out of control and he had no choice.
I don't
But
think there's. Well, Leibniz doesn't think there's any choice for anything.
well, I'm just going by what you wrote, but it'd be pretty easy to disagree with Leibniz on that point. I mean, who
That's
cares
fine.
what he wrote? He's wrong if he thinks that God is contingent on something.
I mean, that's
that
fine. I'm not
God's-
here to defend Leibniz.
Yeah.
Could you discernible? What is your understanding of contingency, or how do you understand what makes something contingent?
I'll answer for him. He does not discernible does not know what it means.
Well, I know what I mean by it. I mean, like modality, there's a bunch of different kinds of modality, right? But the most relevant one to this one is logical contingency, which just means thinkable as becoming otherwise or becoming what it's not without entailing a contradiction.
Right. What is so if that's your definition, in a sense, basically in simpler terms, something could be otherwise, right? The idea that something could have been otherwise or could be otherwise, right? But the thing is, when you conceive of something as being otherwise, what does that say about that thing? That it could have been otherwise, or it could be otherwise, or even more fundamentally, that it could have failed to be. It could have failed to be. It is, but it could. It need not be. Right. So what do you think that says about that thing that we're conceiving of?
Well, a very small number of things, right? A very small number of things. It says that it can't both be what it is and what it's not.
I see.
And
the issue with what you're doing here.
Perhaps that it's quantifiable, but I wouldn't push that.
Yeah.
Oh no! But let me say real quick, because he was talking about the contingency thing. No, so I would actually agree with Leibniz that all God's choices do have a explanation. What I was talking about in that it cannot apply to God is God's aseidus being, right? So, I think this is where Leibniz would agree in relation to God's eternal nature, right? It is because it is. It would be circular, and it doesn't. I mean, maybe it would have an explanation, but again, so
it does. It's within himself. He has his own reason
for existing.
Yes.
I don't. Can you do you have a quote of him saying that?
Yes, the third one.
Okay, let me read the third one. Let me read the third one.
So what I was trying to, the answer that I was looking for discernible with, while you look for that quote, when we consider the nature of contingency and what it entails, there are two inevitable conclusions of conceiving as something as either potentially being different in any sense or potentially not existing, and that is A, limitation. So something is limited in any sense of the word, and B, it is a composite, right? So it is composed. It is a composition of. It is a multiplicity in and of itself, right? That is the two answers that I was looking for. So limitation and composition. So the thing is, that is why metaphysically we speak of contingency, not because of a mere kind of conceptual modality, but really it's an issue of metaphysics. It's a problem. It's a problem that is presented to us, right? When we consider experience and we consider reason and the thrownness which we find ourselves in this world, is that we observe things that are contingent, and all we mean by that is that we observe that they are limited. So, for example, definition, the very
finite
act of defining something is literally exclusion. It's literally an exclusionary process by which we designate something and then we exclude it at the
Hey Z, you're gonna have to really think about these things and give it to them in very short, bite-sized chunks. Because what you do is you go off on a long tangent because you're trying to learn this stuff as you're explaining it. So you're sort of thinking it through, trying to understand it as you're explaining it, and then it takes forever. It takes forever. So Z, what you need to do is really nail down these concepts and deliver them in a 1-2 punch instead of a long 10-minute colloquium.
I understand. No, that's fair. That's totally fair. Objects are real. It's just the thing is
because now you're eating up. You're destroying their conversation. They were going to get somewhere.
Okay, well, let me say this last thing.
I have the attention span for 2.
Let me just say this. Okay, so Leibniz does take it back further than I thought. And so on that, I will say I am corrected. And so he says right here, and this is the main thing too, he says, in bearing the reason for its existence, talking about God within itself. Okay, so he did take it back all the way to God, but then he says, even within God, the reason for its existence is within itself.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Okay, now, so let me ask you this then. So do you think that Leibniz's view here is on par with you just saying, well, it is what it is because it is what it is? Do you think so are you saying that, like when the atheist says, for example, like when you say, why does the universe exist? They say, and when we say the universe, even that's prior to the Big Bang, them just saying it exists because it exists. Do you think that is as sufficient a reason as Leibniz gives?
You're talking about the people that think like the quantum field is a necessary being. Is that what you're getting at here?
Yeah. Do you think that is as equally as reasonable as
I made a whole? I actually made a whole video about breakfast tacos, criticizing him in exactly these terms. I think he's wrong for the same reason you are.
Okay, why are we wrong?
Well, because you both believe in a necessary being in a PSR. I'm just pointing out that I did give an extensive argument why breakfast tacos is wrong.
Okay, explain to us why a belief in a necessary being is wrong.
Because every being can be thought as becoming what it's not.
Break that down for us.
So contradiction obtains between a subject and its predicate, right? So we say a triangle is defined as having 3 sides. So the sentence, this triangle has 4 sides, is contradictory. Someone can deny the existence of a being defined as having 3 sides. Then the sentence, this triangle has 4 sides, ceases to be contradictory. So do the same thing with God and existence, right? The sentence, God does not exist, can be contradictory unless you just deny the existence of a being defined that way. Then the sentence, God does not exist, ceases to be contradictory. You can do that with every particular being, which means every particular being.
Hang on. Did anyone else understand any of that?
I got some of it. I believe what Discernible is trying to put forth is the idea that definitions are arbitrary, if I understand correctly.
No. Well, like arbitrary is not the word that I'd use. It's just that, arbitrary is not the word that I'd use. Can you put this
into a syllogism for us?
Essentially, what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. This is a common argument used by subjectivists or relativists. The idea that, like, well, I can just define God to exist, but I can also define God not to exist.
It's right? Less about defining God to not exist as it is like not defining him as existing. There's nothing that forces us to do that.
I'm not following, dude. Can you put this in like a syllogism?
Not defining him as existing.
So I can look at the premises and see if I disagree with the premise.
All right, give me a second. I'll try and type it in chat.
All right.
As he types it, Z, could you explain to me? Z, you could explain it to me if you don't mind what he was trying to say.
What Discernible was trying to say?
Yeah, could you tell me what he was trying to say? Could you translate what he was saying?
Well, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically what I gather from what Discernible was saying is that if it is the case that we can define as something, so something being contingent is because we define it as such, right? Like we define a triangle as being 3 sides, but it could also be the case that because of contingency, some being that has 4 sides, right? Some triangle that has 4 sides therefore a contradiction obtains between between triangularity, two triangles, because one has three sides, the other has four sides. So it's basically an issue of like, well, we can conceive of a triangle because a triangle is contingent. We can conceive of a triangle that has four sides, but the thing is discernible. You have to understand, unless you specify what it is that you mean three sides, because look, a triangularity or triangle.
Right. What you're saying, Z, is right. Yeah, if you want to change the definition of a triangle to something with four sides, then
It's not a syllogism. But that's
nothing
the
means
line of
anything.
thought.
You know, pigs can fly. You know,
Like a triangle with a corner cut off.
so if you want to redefine reality into what it's not, then fine, just call it a triangle.
You can kind of say a triangle with four sides. Like
No, you can't. Triangle is a triangle. A square is a square. It has four sides. But anyway, square has four sides. Go ahead, discernible. Give us your syllogism, pal.
Yeah, it's not a syllogism. It's just it's just a line of thought, right? That contradiction can only obtain between the subject and a predicate. But the subject has to be posited as existing first. And you can just deny the subject and the contradiction dissolves. That's just the standard rejection of Anselm's, at least, and Descartes and Spinoza's versions of the ontological argument.
Yeah, but the thing is discernible. Like I was saying, the obvious reply or objection to your objection is that, like Objects was saying, it seems like you're not accounting, for example, in the analogy that you gave with the triangle, unless you specify what it is that you mean, in particular, how it is that what a triangle is, like three vertices interconnected in a two-dimensional space, in a two-dimensional plane, unless that is what you specify, because that's what a triangle means, right? But if you want to define a triangle being four sides, you have to specify, okay, is it four sides in a two-dimensional plane? Because if that's the case, then that is literally impossible. You cannot have four interconnecting vertices in a two-dimensional plane whereby the sum of the angles amounts to 100. Where the sum of the angles amounts to 180 degrees. That is impossible, right? Like that is simply like inconceivable and therefore not something that is definable, right? So unless you specify what it is in that definition, what it is precisely, because this is why language matters, right? Language is merely a reference. It's merely a designation to something that subsists outside the mind. That's why this is about metaphysics discernible. It's not just about conception or how we conceive of things or logical, like you said, logical possibility. It's about metaphysical possibility, right? Like, unless you can provide an example of a triangle, or like how it would be possible for a triangle or like I said, four vertices that amount to 180 degrees interconnected in a two-dimensional plane, then you cannot say that. Then your argument is invalid.
Yeah, but somebody just has to deny the existence of an entity defined in the way you just described. And then, like, if I do that, then I can say a triangle has four sides, and I won't be contradicting myself, right? Like, it doesn't entail a contradiction on what I'm saying.
So discernible, one of the Objects Are Real's axioms is that atheists have to redefine reality into these absurdities in order to get their way. And in fact, the only way to get to atheism is to redefine reality. Okay. And so this is why. Hold on, I'm going to mute Z real quick. Hold on.
Well, look, I mean, if you have independence,
I wasn't done. So this is why atheists have to say stuff like, well, why can't a triangle have four sides? I mean, you can do that. And it's like, okay, well then why can't let's just say bachelors are married then. Yeah, you could do that. But if definitions mean anything, and if definitions help us reason out toward the truth, then this kind of playing fast and loose is a losing proposition.
So wait,
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you understand what he's saying now? Because I was reading some stuff and saving the cover of this book so I can get this book, and I didn't hear like this explained in a way that I'm comprehending it. So can you guys explain what this guy's saying?
So just to respond to objects, it's not about redefining anything. It's just about the capacity for it to be thought as being otherwise, right? Like it's just, we can think this way. That's all that's
Well, you
required
can't
for this
think that
position.
you can't think that a triangle has four sides. That's impossible.
I do.
It's
I
like-
can if I deny
Well,
the existence of being defined as having
Well,
three sides.
let me ask you this: can you even conceive of a married bachelor right now?
Well, I'd have to deny the existence of
You
of being
can't.
defined as unmarried.
You can't. You cannot conceive of a married bachelor. It's impossible to even conceive of one, which means they can't exist. Not only can't it exist, you can't even conceive of one.
I agree,
So-
because a bachelor is defined as being unmarried.
Right. Now, if you want to throw out the definitions of things, like I said, now you're just okay. Then anything goes, and it just doesn't work out.
But it
It's
can
logic.
be done, right?
So
I can just deny that there are beings that are
No,
unmarried.
that's just denying reality and putting your fingers in your ears and going la 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 la. I mean,
I agree. It's a
objects
false
are
statement
real.
about the world. Like obviously,
Objects are
triangles
real is
exist.
fundamentally correct. Like you have to understand that what ascribes definition is merely a conceptual discernment or conceptual designation of something that actually exists, right? So like existence is what matters here. Like can something arise? Can something exist? That is the question, right? And when you say that a triangle or four vertices that amount to 180 degrees can exist in a four-dimensional plane, it's not even that's a definition, because that's not a thing. Like that's just like gibberish. That's just like playing with words. Do you understand the difference, for example, between
Right, but
using
you're adding
words?
you're adding in like more predicates that will entail a contradiction, right?
It's unintelligible. Like the point is unintelligible. For example, if I tell you like you're gonna tell me, and I'm gonna tell you I define it that way. Like you're gonna tell me, well, what does that mean? What is that? Like, is that a thing? I don't think that's anything. I don't
Sure,
think you're
I'm not saying anything
you're
that conflicts with
communicating.
that.
Yeah, triangularity. Yes, you're using words that look. Here's what's going on. Right, I'll tell you exactly what's going on. You're using words that we're familiar with, such as four and sides and triangle. We're familiar. We know what all those words mean, but you're combining them you're putting them into a combination that is not allowed by logic or by grammar. Do you understand? Like the combination
It is
of
allowed by
words
logic.
No. The particular combination of words that you're employing is forbidding according to the rules of logic. According to the rules of logic, it is a prohibited
No,
combination.
only granting a certain set of only granting a definition.
There's no
Granting a
transitivity.
definition.
There's no transitivity in your conceptual schema. Basically, there's no possibility of analogicity, and there's no possibility of conception. Right? If there's no
I don't see why
possibility
that would
of
follow.
conception. Yeah, well, I invite you to try. I invite you to go take a piece of paper right now and try to connect four vertices and have them amount to 180 degrees. I invite you to do it right now. You will find that it is.
But I agree, I can't do that.
Right. So there you go. So you prove my point. It is inconceivable, and therefore, like the basic.
Wait, how does that make
even
the sense
according to
this
your own
triangle's a
definition,
square contradictory
conceivability
if I deny
is
the
the
existence
basis
of
of
triangles?
contingency. No, discernible. You just gave the argument away. You just gave it because originally I asked you, how do you define contingency? And objects are real. I pointed this out. You define it as logical contingency, meaning like something that is able to be conceived. You just said that the example you provided cannot be conceived, and that was the basis for you rejecting the idea that definitions are rigid designators.
No, you're
right?
you're already talking. But like in your challenge to me, you were already like using like already accepted definitions that I accept. So like of course I can't do it. Like I know I can't draw a triangle that is a square because I think a square is three angles.
If I said you agreed, discernible, that you can't even conceive of a married bachelor, and then you said, well, if I just throw out the subject, I mean,
yeah.
that's just kind of like throwing out your brain. It's like
No.
saying 2 + 2 is not 4 because I don't want to think about it anymore. Well, sorry, but bachelors will always be unmarried, and 2 and 2 will always be 4, despite what you want to do. And so what we're saying is the mind independent fact. Okay. Well, granted, with a bachelor situation, it's not mind independent.
Yeah, that's
With
exactly
the
right.
number situation, it is.
Where's the contradiction if I just don't define bachelors as unmarried? Like, if I don't define them that way, then why can't I say a bachelor is unmarried?
Because the definition's not up to you. That's why.
Yeah.
So
Sure, like
Do you want
the
me to lay
definition,
out
we can say it's
yeah,
intersubjective,
not Pete, discernible?
but it's still
Would you like me
thinkable,
to lay out?
and that's all it needs
Would you
to
like me
be.
to lay
well,
out?
then it's not a bachelor anymore. I mean, you can come up with I can come
By
up
the usual
with my own
definition, I agree with
definition
that.
of a triangle as four-sided. But this just puts you in an insane asylum with schizophrenia.
No,
We
nothing
want to
like that
deal
at
in the
all.
real world. If you want to start using sentences and jumbling up the words and making predicates, subjects, and all kinds of things like that,
Do you know?
you're in crazy land. And so that's
No,
why
I'm
these
just pointing out the
definitions matter.
the lack of logical necessity of any
You know
particular
your name,
subject.
discernible. Discernible. You know your name, right? Discernible is.
Mhm.
You know why the law of non-contradiction is the law of non-contradiction? It proceeds from a more fundamental principle, which is the identity of indiscernibles, right? Like the idea that things are what they are, right? The law of identity. Things are what they are. And when you conceive of something that is unique, that is something that is not to be confused or equalized to anything else in existence. Whatever it is you're thinking about, that thing is unique. That is the property, that a metaphysical property that is the basis of all reasoning, of all logic. So if you want to say that a triangle and a square are the same thing, and we can just will it into existence, that you're violating the most fundamental principle, which is literally the basis of reasoning. Like right now, all the words, everything you're doing right now, communicating to me,
But you're
the basis
just
of all of that.
equivocating. You're just equivocating between triangle, defined as 3 sides, and triangle with not that definition. Like you're thinking I'm using the same word in both ways, but like I'm not.
Dude, come on. Like I'm gonna assume you're being good faith, but this is like seriously. This is the point is that if you want to say that we can refer to a square by another name, if that's all you're saying, then that's totally irrelevant to the argument. Yes, I agree that language is a convention and language changes, and the particular words that we have change in meaning, like
No,
reference.
it's not saying
Like
it's not saying you can
right?
call it a square or something else. It's just denying the existence of a particular subject. Like to say that triangles as beings defined as 3 sides don't exist, that is not a contradiction.
So I don't, dude. So my original point though was okay. So when a Christian looks at the universe, they say the universe is contingent. And the explanation for the contingent universe with all its like properties is an intelligent being that transcends the world, who is intelligent, that brings about a contingent universe, satisfying the necessary and sufficient conditions and all these things. And we say, so we believe this to be a reason to account for these things. And when an atheist says, well, we say, how do you account for these things? They just say, well, intelligibility is just a product of nature. It is what it is. And I ask if you think these are like equivalent, and you brought up this whole thing about triangles that I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Well, my answer was there, but that wasn't the first thing I said. When you asked that, the first thing I said was that I just denied the PSR and necessary beings. And because I deny the PSR, I think events can take place without sufficient
So now
conditions.
you're making an argument against necessary beings, right?
That's what the last 10 minutes have been about.
Okay. And what I'm saying is I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So is there a way you could explain this to like me where I could get it? Like so say there was a 12-year-old like me, I'm 12 years old, and you're trying to give me an argument against necessary beings. How do you explain it?
Okay. All right. So I'll just if I was going to explain it to a 12-year-old, I'd say, Superman, right? If somebody says Superman doesn't have laser vision or heat vision rather, and Superman can't fly, are they right or wrong?
Well, depend on what Superman was originally created with.
Right now. I'm talking about 2025.
Yeah, Superman. Okay, so Superman is Superman in relation to his creator, right? Whoever that was, I don't know.
Yeah, but the answer to the question is yes, Superman can fly and has heat vision.
Okay.
So somebody who thinks Superman can't fly is just wrong.
Okay.
But so we could, I think what you've been saying is that we could just change your idea of Superman, right? Like somebody could come up with a new version of Clark Kent, and 10 years from now, everybody accepts that this is Superman, and he can't fly and he doesn't have laser vision. Because
no, I didn't say that.
Well, we sort of like, it's sort of like we understand Superman definably. He's defined as being able to fly and having heat vision. But we can just change your idea of Superman such that it's no longer false to say he can't, that he can fly, that he can't fly, rather.
So you're saying I may be needlessly employing a necessary being?
Well, yeah, I would say it's needless to think of a necessary being.
Although you couldn't know that, but maybe that doesn't apply. So keep going with the analogy until it clicks.
Well, but I think that is the analogy, right? Like it is false to say Superman can't fly, in some sense, just because like that's one of his defining characteristics. Like that's one of the points of Superman, that he can fly.
Okay, so how does that apply to a necessary? Like they're not like existence not needing a necessary being.
So that's for the property of necessity itself. It's exactly like flying, right? You can imagine Superman without flying. We can change the stories over the next 10 years such that everybody agrees Superman can't fly. Just because flying is not a necessary predicate of Superman. It's not actually a necessary predicate. Same thing with existence, right? People can say that a being has necessary existence as a predicate, but you can just deny the existence of that being. In the same way, you can deny the existence of a being defined as flying.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is you reject the need of a necessary being because no one has demonstrated to you that a necessary being is necessary.
Well, I think
is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying something negative. I think it's like just like established and kind of obviously true that there is no necessary being.
Okay, so
as in a being that can't be thought as being otherwise, becoming otherwise.
Okay, can someone else here besides Discernible steel man his argument in a way that I could understand it?
Yes, I could.
Okay, please do.
So he says that because it's not a contradiction for him to deny reality, he's free to do so without contradiction. So if I say that this stone has the property of being in space and time, he would just say, the stone's not there. There is no stone. And then he thinks he's perfectly... That's why he can say things like, well, if I don't think a bachelor's married, why can't I define bachelor? You see what I mean? So
it just mean a lack of contradiction.
Wait, so, dude, am I like, dude? Maybe I'm low IQ, bro, and drooling on myself, but I'm not getting it, bro. My brain ain't getting it.
This is objects are real's one of his axioms, where these atheists have to redefine reality into absurdity or just define it out of being. I mean, it's just insanity. When you want to get rid of a lawful order to the cosmos and its hierarchies, then anything goes. I mean, you can just deny reality and say, oh, I'm not making a contradiction there. So why isn't my view any better? Why isn't my view as good as your view?
Yeah, tell me what the contradiction is if I stipulate that bachelors are not unmarried.
Well, there's no contradiction that, there's a flying spaghetti monster going around the moon right now. But
well, of course there's not. What contradiction would there be in that?
I'm just saying but these are the kinds of absurdities that we don't really waste our time
Hang
on.
on. Well, discernible. Did he steelman you correctly?
I wasn't quite listening, but I was responding to Nick. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was responding to Nick.
Okay, wait. Does Nick understand what you're saying? Were you here, Nick? Okay. So Nick, I told him to give me an argument against a necessary being, and he gave me the Superman analogy that I wasn't really following. Do you know what he's talking about, Nick?
You get what I said about
No.
flying, though, right? Existence is the same thing as flying.
No, it's not. That's where you're wrong. That's totally false, man. Flying as a property of Superman versus being at all is totally different scenario.
Oh, and discernible, I will concede. Leibniz did talk about the existence of God and said that it does have a reason. Okay, so I guess which I guess would follow anyway, right? Like, because obviously, if anything that God does, He could give a reason for why He does what He does. Now, when it comes to why He exists eternally, Leibniz does say that he believes that there is a reason within itself. Okay, but when I'm talking to say an unbeliever, I'm talking about reasons in relation to the contingent world as we know it. Nothing that is I'm not going to that which is non-contingent, right? Because it could be that there is a reason behind God's existence within itself, but I don't know that. But what I am saying is in relation to contingent universe, if an atheist just says, well, it is because it is, I consider that to be no reason at all. This is why, you often hear it said that brute facts are mute facts. So if I'm offering reasons that go even beyond, wouldn't that fundamentally be more reasonable? Well, yeah, it would be more reasonable in relation to like the PSR, that all things that, and again, I would say contingent. And I can show you sources though where they say Leibniz did use this in relation to contingencies. Maybe that's something later in his life. I don't know. Yeah, when I'm talking about contingencies, I think the PSR is valuable in that we need a reason or explanation. That's what drives science, right? What is driving science even to know a theory of everything is they want a sufficient reason or explanation for the things that are. If they just finally get to a point where they're like, well, it just is what it is, then science no longer advances and science dies out. But anyway, back to the point on so Nick, you're here now. So discernible. So we state that there is a necessary being that is God. Can you repeat any way you like, and maybe other people can understand it, and then explain it to me in a way I can understand? So we put forth that there is a necessary being. What is your argument against a necessary being?
So it's an argument against the ontological argument, right? The ontological argument, at least like in Anselm's version, is that God can't be understood as not existing. To understand God as not existing is impossible because it entails a contradiction. Because existence is just a part of God's essence, like Leibniz says, right? To deny God's existence is like saying a triangle has four sides, right? So, like, that's the thing I'm targeting. Is that clear?
No,
Can we just change
no,
Leibniz?
it's not.
Can we just make Leibniz a female?
Hang on. You know what's interesting about this is I've only done this like one other time where I just couldn't grasp what the atheist was saying, and it was Null Hypatheist, right? The guy that says he has a 189 IQ and that he's autistic. And I'm like, dude, I'm just not getting it. It took me like an hour to get what he was saying, and it was so obvious. No, the problem was this. He could have reworded it so simply that instantly I could have got it. But his way of trying to explain was so foreign to the average brain that I needed someone that was mid autistic to explain it back to me. So I'd be like, oh, okay. So it's this, but this is how an autist explains it.
Okay, well, let's try it this way. So Like the contingency argument, right, says like X is explained by Y is explained by Z,
Mhm.
and in order to tie this off, you need a necessary being, right?
Yes.
Right. And if you deny the existence of that necessary being, then this chain of contingent beings stops making sense to us
Yeah.
in some way. So that's one argument for a necessary being, right?
Yes.
But and while that being has to exist for our world to look the way that it does, our world doesn't have to look the way that it does. It could not exist, right? Like our world doesn't have to be what it is.
I was
How do you
saying,
know
And
that?
because
How
our
do you know
world
that?
doesn't
Yeah, wait a
have to
minute.
be what it
How do you
is.
know that? How do you know it doesn't have to?
well, no, it has to exist that's why it's here. I mean, we are here now, so it has to have existed and has to exist now.
Well, we can, but then the contingency argument is irrelevant to you, right? And there's just no contingency argument on yours. The contingency argument assumes the world could be otherwise. You're just rejecting contingency argument, which is fine.
Huh? No, it doesn't necessarily. That doesn't necessarily follow.
If the world could only be one way, then there doesn't need to be an explanation of why it is the way that it is. The contingency argument wants an
There could
explanation
still be an
for why the world
explanation
is the
of
way
why
that
it is what it is. There could still be an explanation of why it is the way it is.
But it doesn't explain, like, so the contingency argument wants to say if the world is X, it's not Y, right? And it wants to explain why the world is X as opposed to Z. Objects is real, it just is saying Z, not possible. It's only X. So the contingency argument there is just pointless.
Yeah, but if something is inevitable, like you can still like explain what steps the process took to get from like the necessary first cause to the outcome, right?
Yeah, and I would also add there's no possibility that this world doesn't exist. And that's only because we're here.
Then there's just nothing to
and we have-
contrast. Then there's just no contrastive explanations.
There's a reason
There's no
why
explaining
we got here.
X, Y, X
We,
rather
we
than
have
Z.
we have an explanation as to why we got here.
But there's
and
no explanation for why X
we are
rather
here,
than Z.
and actually, you are here, and you can't deny that, right? So it couldn't be any other way than the fact that you're here. Now, once you're here, you have free will to do as you choose. That's a whole different story. But the fact that you're here, the fact that you have being, the fact of being, just is, and that is undeniable. The fact of being, the fact of the self.
Yeah, quasi-necessitarianism is fine. That just means the contingency argument is irrelevant. That's all I'm saying.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying that there's no possible way that we're not here right now.
Okay, that makes the contingency argument irrelevant. But like
Well,
the
I
contingency,
disagree.
I'm trying to
Why
explain the
does-
necessary being thing, and the contingency argument is a pretty
No,
straightforward way
I
to start.
disagree, because if that were true, then anyone who says that we exist is denying the contingency argument, and no one who says we exist denies the contingency argument.
Look, necessitarianism just denies contingency. The contingency argument requires an idea
well,
of
I don't know.
contingency.
I'm not. Maybe I'm not a necessitarian then. All I'm saying is that we exist, and there's no way to deny that. You exist, and there's no way to deny that. And that's all I'm saying. Now, there are contingent
That's
reasons why you're
great.
here, and that's definitely not a denial of contingency.
Oh, okay, that's great. But anyways, so Bach, you get the idea of this contingent being, right? Like by analogy, in our world, gravity is necessary for orbits, right?
Mhm.
But orbits like don't have to exist, right? Like orbits could not exist.
I can't say that.
Okay, you can imagine orbits not existing.
Yeah, I can imagine it. Yeah.
Okay. And then you wouldn't need to imagine gravity as existing because the stuff gravity doesn't happen.
So so say that there was no necessary being and the universe is here, but it doesn't have to be here. How does that happen?
How does like our universe, the way that it is, appear?
Yeah, because I've heard
In no
even
sufficient
Sean.
reason.
Well, hang on. I've heard Sean Carroll say that there may not be a necessary being. Okay, so if our universe is here, and there's no necessary like reason we're here, how it just happens by chance? Is that what you're saying? Like our universe just comes by chance, but it doesn't necessarily have to be here?
I'd reject the word chance because chance makes it sound like there's some cosmic dice. But that would just be its own kind of necessity. I would say that the world, or at least the initial conditions of the world, exists for no sufficient reason.
No sufficient reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There's nothing that was ever in place that gave us this world rather than another world.
how does that work? Can you explain that to me? How like that brings about a world?
Well, to describe how would be describing a process and therefore a sufficient condition, right? The
So
claim
the
is that there's
universe
no
is here for
sufficient
no.
condition.
So the reason that the universe is here for no reason.
Ours, yeah, the stuff we have for no reason.
Is it no reason to reason?
So he's denying contingency now.
Is it no reason
Not
to
when it comes
reason?
to entities.
Because if we're here for no reason, then there's no contingent fact prior that would have led to this current state.
And doesn't modern
Yeah, not
science
necessarily.
but doesn't like modern science for the most part disagree with that? And they say that prior to like say the Big Bang and space, time, and matter, that there is something that is eternal that operates by law. And if we had access to it, we could even put it into mathematical equations, like Lincoln says in what's called Many Worlds in One. So you just are you in opposition to like any modern physicist that says there is something prior to the universe that we could like reason and put into mathematical equations that gives rise to our universe? Are you saying that you'd be in disagreement?
So remember, it's two different claims that are at stake, right? There's this prior stuff that existed, and two different claims you can make. It existed versus it necessarily existed. It's the second one I deny. I don't know about the first. I don't know if it existed or not, but I do know it didn't have to exist.
Okay. Can you give me an analogy to help me with this? How the universe could come into being with no necessary being? Like, help me imagine what that would look like.
Well, like I think if you got in a time machine and went back to one of these events without sufficient condition,
One of these events. What events?
well, in hypothetically posited,
Like a
event.
Big Bang.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically posited.
Oh,
Like if you go back and watch one of these events that hypothetically took place, I think it would look exactly like a miracle.
You think
That's what it would look like on camera.
Exactly like you think.
You think the beginning of the universe was a miracle?
No, I think that's what it would look like on camera, so to speak.
So it just.
What does what you think have anything like? What the hell does that? Cares what you think?
So you think the universe?
Well, I'm trying to explain it to Bach.
You think the universe just happened for no reason?
Like our universe. So, like this goes back to the question of what you were asking about physics, right?
Or whatever brings universes into being. The fundamental. Well, it ain't even fundamental. It just did it. Dude, it doesn't make sense to me. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think
there's no
brain works
fundamental
like this,
sufficient
bro.
condition.
This is
That's right.
this is the cost of atheism. So let me ask you this: is there a reason the Earth was formed?
Well, yeah, presumably that's like a recognizable process that has repeated itself
Good.
and is subjectable to laws.
Okay, great. So you do accept prior reasons for current states. Okay, that's great. And we've
Of course, I
established
do
that
accept
with
there
you.
are. I do accept we perceive causal relations, and there's phenomenal consistency, all that stuff. Of course.
Okay, good. So then you're just saying, yes, there are reasons for antecedents causing current states. That those are reasons for having a current state, like an Earth, for example.
Yeah, it's just not necessary.
Or like your birth or something. Those are actual reasons because they're prior physical causes, and you accept that.
Yeah, they're just
but
not
what
necessary.
what you're saying is, once you go back far enough in time, there's no reason. You're going to draw a line in the sand and say, beyond this line, there's no reason.
So
that
Bach already asked me about this, right? And it's two possible claims about what was before the Big Bang. That something existed versus that
You're
thing had to exist.
You're assuming the Big Bang.
The second one, the thing
Bang.
had to exist, definitely not true. Did
Were
that
you
thing before the
grilling
Big
me
Bang
about
exist?
what I was saying earlier?
I don't know. That's a question for physicists. And maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I don't know.
You're assuming the Big Bang, though. What the fuck? Like, what?
So discernible, do you okay.
He's appealing to a mysterious miracle because he said,
No.
like, well, you said if there is something that arises from something non-fundamental, to experience that would appear as a miracle.
Right. If you and I were there to watch it, it would look like a miracle. But a miracle is something caused. A miracle has a sufficient condition.
What did you say?
Like a miracle is something that's caused, right? It's either God or Harry Potter magic or Satan or whatever. A miracle has a cause. I'm just talking about what it would look like, not what it actually was.
How do you?
I'll have to look more, dude. I'll have to look more into this way of thinking. And I know there's other people that think like this. Like Sean Carroll has a video where he said, "You guys keep asking like what the reason is that the universe came into being. There is no reason. Stop asking what the reason is." But I can't reason to what the hell you guys are saying.
Well, but Sean Carroll appeals to reason throughout his whole belief system.
Yeah.
I mean, his fundamental thing is the universal wave function that causes everything. There is nothing more than the universal wave function.
All of science is based on the principle of sufficient reason, right? Like, what is the reason for this? Well, what's the reason for that? Well, and then you chain it back. But it's almost like once they get to the end of their human capacity, they'll say, well, the PSR is not needed anymore. We don't need an explanation. It just is. And we don't, and there's no necessary, but I just don't get like how there's not some fundamental necessary being.
When you're
that's just not what I'm saying.
Dealing with the beginning of space and time itself, the cause would be timeless and spaceless. And that's not something that physics can grapple with.
Yeah, that's assuming there has to be a cause.
But it is something that God believers can grapple with.
That's assuming there has to be a
Discernible.
cause.
It seems like discernible. It seems like throughout this whole conversation, you've been employing the instruments of reason, but when it seems like the instruments of reason lead you to a conclusions which has theological implications, right? Like the PSR, which you've been using throughout this whole conversation. It seems like that's when you're more susceptible to like doing these kind of like language games, like, oh, like we can just define everything however we want, and that's why the PSR is invalid. It's like, you obviously know that's not valid.
It's not defining however we want. It's just denying the existence of a subject.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Can you define exactly? Are you saying that like objects are not real? For like, sorry, not to. Are you saying that like objects fundamentally don't exist?
No, they do.
Okay.
Do they?
So what do you mean by a subject? What do you mean by a subject now?
Just something you attach predicates to, right? An X is a Y.
Okay, but discernible. What you're doing is you're replacing words. You're giving synonyms for something like an object. An object which you attach properties to, a subject which you attach predicates to, a thing which you say other things about. That's just synonyms. Like concretely, what is a subject? What is an object? What do you mean by these words?
Oh, I don't know. I personally might not be able to give you anything better than like the basically grammatical answer I just gave you.
Right. That's exactly my problem. You don't know. That's exactly the problem. And objects are real can elaborate on this, but you don't know what an object is. That's the fundamental metaphysical problem.
Well, hang on. Here's what I know.
What an object is. And objects are real can literally, like, he's an expert on this. Like, you can go ahead objects. Like, define what an object is.
If you want me to think it's a fundamental problem, you have to tell me why it's a problem for like anything I've said.
Though, I don't hang on. I don't want to move on quite yet though, because I just would really like. I need somebody to explain to me how you can have something without a necessary without, even if it's not a necessary mind. How can you have something without a necessary thing or being?
But isn't it easier for you to imagine an event taking place without a sufficient
No,
condition
I can't even
in
conceive.
some given context?
I cannot conceive of an event happening without a prior necessary thing causing it. Like I can't even conceive of it. So I'm asking you to help me conceive of this.
Okay, sure. So, like, imagine a room, right? And this room has no wood or carpenters or any materials for a table in it. You can do that, right?
Yep.
And now there's a table in the room.
Yep.
There were no sufficient conditions of a table inside the room.
So you're appealing to a miracle.
Well, a miracle would be a cause, right? Miracles are caused events. They have sufficient conditions.
Okay. So wait. Let me back up then. Okay. So I'm in a room. It's a white room. It's made of whatever.
There's just nothing that can make a table.
There's nothing in the room that can make a table, and then the table appears.
Yeah.
That's an instance of something coming into being without a necessary thing behind it.
Yeah, and specific without a there can be necessary conditions.
And you think? What'd you say?
There can be necessary conditions, but I'm talking about sufficient conditions. There's nothing in the room that's sufficient for a table appearing.
How'd the table get there?
Well, by hypothesis, for no reason.
Can I get some of the? Can I get some?
Ironically, that's what Sean Carroll kind of argues against. That's possible in this debate with Craig, for example. That the conception is that things can just pop into existence from basically nothing, but that's not something we want to take into consideration.
But God can't be real. It's
Do I got to take some LSD to get this?
yeah, pretty much.
But didn't
You got to
you
be
just
severely retarded.
see it in your own head? I don't understand how it could make it more straightforward.
But it doesn't make sense to me, dude. Like the table gets in the only way a table can get into my room is like there has to be the necessary and sufficient things to get it in there, right? It has to be built in the room with parts, or somebody has to carry it into the room. It doesn't just for no reason. That's contrary to everything we've experienced in our existence.
How is it contrary to experience?
Then what do we ever? What have I've never seen a table just instantaneously pop into my room.
I cannot
That
believe
doesn't
you
make it
guys are
contrary to
entertaining
experience.
this.
It makes it compatible with
believe it.
experience.
What'd you say?
It's compatible with experience, just like animals we
What
haven't
experience?
experienced yet are compatible with experience.
How is that? How is this compatible? How is this compatible? Give me something that happens in the real world that is like the table appearing spontaneously in the room for no reason.
Look, it's just that unexpected events, right? Events we have not experienced before taking place in the future are compatible with our experience of the past. Our experience of the past doesn't dictate what happens in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big problem for your view, though. To be honest,
But that's exactly what I think.
Do you understand him?
Yeah, I mean, he's just saying that. I mean, the biggest problem with his view on this table, I think we kind of already discussed this in text. I discussed it with Turnbull. If we grant the thesis that things can just pop into existence without sufficient reasons
No
or some kind of
cause.
priors. Yeah, basically no
cause.
cause. They kind of just come about ex nihilo, and there's no God. There's no necessary thing kind of bringing about it with a purpose, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's
There
no
has
reason
to
to
be a
think.
cause.
Hold on. There's no reason to think that these things are going to be true or false. We can never discern these things to be true or false. They're just kind of random things that pop into our heads. And we're just left with skeptical.
And there's
Like
certainly no
the
reason
conditions
for me
of
to
thought.
take this as a reason. This is certainly without reason. This is why I say atheists are not reasonable. They literally have no reason. It's just so weird, dude. It's so just strange to the average brain.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you what the contradiction is, right? Because the claim is just that there's no contradiction in it. And it's compatible with past experience.
You'd have to. What is compatible with past experience? What are you talking about?
What the fuck are you talking about?
Never experienced a table
Past
popping in a room.
experience. Past experiences of the past, right?
Pop?
That doesn't mean the future is
Of
going to
what
be the same
past?
as the past.
Future doesn't just pop into
Give
existence,
an
bro.
explanation. Give a fucking explanation. A real life explanation. Not
Explanation of
just,
what?
I made the reference, therefore it's true.
Of a table popping into a room.
Oh, I don't know if any such event has ever taken place. The point is that it can
What the
take
fuck are you
place.
referencing?
What are
You know it can. How do you know it can?
The lack of contradiction.
This guy is saying it's not a contradiction, and that you're in a room where a table could not be, and it just instantaneously pop in your room, dude, for no reason.
I cannot believe you guys are still
What?
entertaining this.
Wait, what kind of
can't
claim is
believe
that?
Right.
Is that actually your claim? That you can just be
Yes.
sitting in the room and a table just
Autism-
appears
I
in the
mean,
room?
don't you guys generally like talking about Hume?
Wait, but what does that have to
Right,
do with you
because,
being atheist? And how
like,
is that a
experience of the
claim?
past.
Like, what?
Experience of the
How
past
did we get
doesn't
here?
establish the future.
What
Non-contradiction
experience of the past?
is only
What
about the
experience of the
present,
past?
right? A can
Yeah,
become
name
not
the
A
experience of
in
the
the
past.
future. So,
Motherfucker.
like, what's the problem?
Wait, let's hear him out. I want to hear where he's coming from. There
Give me
has to
example.
be somewhere where it
CEO,
makes
you're
sense.
kind of interrupting.
Explain the
There
example.
has-
He has to explain the fucking example. Where's the example?
How am I interrupting? I'm telling them to
Like
stop
an actual
interrupting you.
example of that? So, like,
Yeah,
again,
one example of a
Yeah.
chair popping into the room for like out of thin air.
Anything popping into the fucking room out of thin air.
yeah, this isn't an
Yeah,
event. This isn't a
that would-
claim about events that have taken place. This is just a
What
claim
are you
about a
saying?
lack of necessary being, and or rather, that the PSR is false. It's not a claim that tables
What?
have popped into
Oh my God.
existence.
What was the original claim? How is this evidence? What does the table popping into existence have to do with? What's the bigger picture here? I don't get what's happening.
Well,
So he said
listen
he
for
doesn't
a while.
hold. He said he doesn't hold to there being a necessary being. And I say, well, if there's not a necessary being, like how could the universe come into being? He says, well, for no reason. I said, well, give me an example of what it would be like for something to happen without a reason. He said, imagine a room. There's nothing. There's nothing in it, and a table just suddenly appears in the room.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
you can
okay. I see what
intelligibly
both of you are
imagine it.
saying.
That's
That
all you
is
have to do.
not even close to justifiable or even a good argument for what he just said.
Yeah, no shit. Why do you think I'm going? What the fuck
So-
is this motherfucker talking about?
Yeah, that's
So,
great, CEO.
How does
But it
the
is
table
intelligible
have
to you,
do with-
Bach, right? Like, you did understand it. You could follow the thought experiment. It was pretty
It
easy.
does no. I mean, I can imagine. Listen, I can listen. No, listen. I can imagine a table popping into the room for no reason.
Yeah,
But
that's all.
in relation to the world I live in and experience every day, I can't.
That won't happen
Why
in real
not?
life.
Of course you can
Because that's
imagine
not
it.
How would that happen?
That's also very easy.
What's
All
that?
right, but how would
Okay,
that,
go ahead.
in what situation would that happen in real life?
Well, I'm not saying it does happen, right? The point is, no
It
necessary
happens
being,
in
no
brains, so
PSR.
is there a
Like
mind
that,
behind the universe?
we're
Well, how
discussing
would it
what
happen?
follows from that, CEO, right? You're jumping in the middle of a conversation that's been going on for a while.
Yeah, but he pretty much just gave me the rundown. I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good understanding of what's happening. He said that.
Then why
he
are you
said,
asking me about
okay, so-
whether it happens in real life or not?
Because
Right?
they're
The
asking
point
you the
is,
same thing,
no
'cause
necessary
that doesn't
being,
happen in real life.
no
That's why I'm
PSR.
asking you.
It doesn't mean that events without sufficient reasons have taken place, right? The list of things that
demonstrate
have
one.
taken place, the list of
Demonstrate
beings
one.
that do take,
So
the
what
list of
you're
beings that
saying
do
is
exist.
so pretty much
CEO,
you're saying
you're just
is my
interrupting.
argument
You're
has-
just
no,
interrupting,
no.
dude.
because what you're
The
saying
list
is
of
my
things that
argument
exist,
has no
the list of events
hold in
that have
reality.
taken place, the list of things that exist, the list of events that have taken place, that's just, we only know those through empirical inquiry. There's no way to know it a priori.
Okay, so there's no way to know what we don't know. Pretty much is what you're saying.
I didn't say that. I don't know what that means.
Let me
I
look
don't know
into
what the
this.
fuck you mean.
Let me search this. Maybe Google can help me. How can something exist without a necessary being?
So
Necessary.
I feel like, Bach, the problem is
gonna-
that you're hunting for a mechanism, but the point is no mechanism.
So you're appealing to magic.
No, magic would be a mechanism. I mean, there's mechanisms in Harry
Oh
Potter.
my god, dude! Whatever, like,
So-
dude.
So where did it come
Of
from? Where
course,
did the universe
magic
and everything
is
come
a
from?
sufficient condition.
I don't
Like,
understand.
what else do you mean by
I don't
magic?
understand. I don't understand. He doesn't actually have a point.
Yeah, that's
He
what I'm
doesn't actually
saying.
have a point. He's trying to tie up. He's trying to basically troll the shit out of you. He's trolling the shit out of you by tying you up into this fucking bullshit thought
Dumbass
experiment.
fucking claim.
that he's claiming
No,
it has
it's
like
pretty
some sort of
straightforward.
validity, which
And I'm
has
sure
no,
even you followed it,
no
COVID.
actual
So
validity.
So you know a way
What
easier
is
way.
your point then?
You know, no,
What is
a
your
way
point then?
easier way to say your point is just I don't know. That would, like you could dead this
I don't
entire
know
thing
what.
just if you said I don't.
What
know.
is it you think I'm saying? I don't know.
You're saying because he asked you how do you think the universe came to about? You said imagine if a table just popped into the room, and you're
That
just giving all
was
these
no. That
random
is
ass
not how the
examples that aren't
conversation
even
went.
possible. It would be
That's
way
not how the
easier for you to just say
conversation
I
went,
don't know.
dude. You just came in
Holy
halfway through the
shit.
conversation. You don't know what's been said.
Okay,
No, I told
so
this
what's
guy
the
to fuck
point?
off like a long time ago.
Objects. What do you disagree with the definition of objects provided by objects?
You're saying I popped in randomly. What am I missing?
And you're missing a lot of context, and I'm not interested in catching you up. Sorry,
I'm
Z,
missing
what was
context?
that?
There's no context.
Only auto.
Am I missing context? I'm pretty sure
Only
I
autism
understand what's
get-
going on.
No, in his view, there's no context to even
Only
get.
autism get it.
I don't think I'm
No,
mixing
this
context.
is how you. This is a guy who's fucking around.
What was your question,
basically.
Z?
He's just fucking around.
I just
Fuck off.
it does seem like just
Maybe he is trolling because that makes no sense.
objection.
Yeah,
to
he
the
is trolling.
PSR.
Sure.
Your entire objection to the PSR seems to be predicated on this idea that essentially definability as such is a virtual imposition on whatever it is, whatever substrate, right? And therefore that there's no rigid designators in the world. There's like rigid designators do not exist, right? That seems to be the whole basis for your predication. And if that's the case, if I'm accurately describing the basis for your rejection, then it seems like you would have to provide a definition
Something
of
else.
what is meant by what is meant by objects, right? And what is your basis for rejecting objects?
I
And objects
don't
are
know
real
like
terms.
enough about, because like to me it sounds like you're using like a rigid designator as if it's like a necessary truth, but I don't know if that's how rigid designators are supposed to work. I'm just saying I don't know if I'm committed to the denial of them or not.
I get it.
I mean, if I am
I
committed to the
know-
denial
I
of
know
rigid
it's going on.
designators, then
So
that's
I don't
fine.
I know what's going on now.
Designators.
Dude,
Like,
he's
isn't the
Canadian.
point of rigid designator
I figured it out.
that like Richard Nixon would be Richard Nixon in every possible world, even in the worlds where he's not president?
That's correct. Yeah.
So
But that doesn't
I have
mean
a
Richard
question.
Nixon exists in every possible world.
what does
No,
that
of
have to do with the
course not.
argument at all?
No, Richard Nixonness, or the singular uniqueness of Richard Nixon is the point. It's the point that only Richard Nixon can be Richard Nixon, and therefore any conceivable world
Oh my God.
where there exists a Richard Nixon, that's the individual we're referring to in every
Bro,
possible
this
world.
conversation is so fucking
Maybe.
stupid. Wait, okay.
Who
so
else is like?
I have a question. I have a question, Discernible.
No,
I have a question.
please, COE writing. We've heard enough from you. Please, I would like to.
I haven't even said shit yet. What? So look.
I do know.
You're out of your element, Donnie.
Look, my question is to you, Discernible, is okay, your objection is that you aren't quite entirely sure what created the universe, but you don't believe in God pretty much.
That's not what the conversation's about.
Well,
That is what the
you have
conversation is about. But he's doing it in a roundabout fucking
Yeah, exactly.
million
So what is
mile
the
way
table,
when you can get
what
it
is
done
the
in a mile.
table analogy? What does the table analogy have to do with your point then? Like, how does that explain your point? Where
So
where
the claim
where
is
do the
not
dots
about whether or
connect?
not their claim is not about whether or not there's a triune being who happened to part the Red Sea for Moses. That's not what we're talking about,
Okay.
right?
No one said anything. You're the one who brought up Moses. What the fuck?
Okay, and the discussion isn't about whether or not some particular being exists. The discussion is whether or
Okay.
not there's a being that must
Yes,
exist.
it is. Yes.
So
it is.
is there
Yes,
a triune
there-
being that parted the Red Sea for Moses
Same
and
fucking
created the
thing.
universe
It's-
6,000 years
Must
ago?
exist. Okay,
I don't know.
That's
man.
that's a
I don't
different
know.
story.
But that being doesn't have to
Semantics.
exist. That's the claim.
It doesn't have to exist. Okay.
It can cease to
Well,
exist or
in
become
that-
what it's
By
not.
that case, by that
How do you
method
know
of
it doesn't
thinking,
have to
nothing.
exist?
But no, by that method of thinking, nothing has to exist. Nothing. Yeah,
There
you're
you
not.
go.
You're the only way you would be able to say something has to exist is if you were God himself and you were like, this has to exist. Like, there's nothing. Nothing has to exist. No, I don't think anyone said that something
Even God can
has
think
to
things
exist.
as not existing.
Dude,
But
did the doctor power bomb you when you were born?
It's not an agnosticism about necessary existence. It's a denial of it.
it's a denial of a supreme
Necessary entities.
being. Necessary.
I'm not
entities.
agnostic
Okay, well,
about them.
I guess if that's your claim, then no one can really refute that because nothing in life is necessary. Nothing is truly necessary unless you're God deeming something absolutely
I
necessary.
agree, it's
himself.
irrefutable.
So, but what's the point of even making that claim then if there's no way to refute it?
Because it's true. And
But
the
did
wider
anyone argue
implication would be
against
for the
it?
principle of sufficient reason. Principle of sufficient reason
What
requires
is
a necessary
true?
being. No necessary being, no PSR.
He's saying that God might exist, but he doesn't have to exist. Who said God has to exist?
If by God we mean
Who said he doesn't?
triune being who happened to part the
Who said
Red
he
Sea for
doesn't have to
Moses,
exist?
sure, it might
Yeah,
exist.
it sounded like when I first joined, it sounded like you were saying he doesn't exist, but now you're saying he doesn't have to exist.
We weren't talking about God when you walked in. We were talking about a necessary being.
Is that not?
That's
Is
God.
that not
That
about
would be
God?
God. That would be God. Yeah.
Most people think
So,
that way,
so
sure.
this motherfucker plays semantical. Listen. This
Necessary being, like
motherfucker's
writing,
like what else am I supposed to interpret that as?
Listen to me.
Lots of people think that way,
Severely
yeah.
autistic, or he's playing a semantical mind fuck game. Okay, that's what he's done this whole fucking time. So
There's no semantic
that's what you're in
mind
for.
fucking going on here. It's pretty
So
straightforward.
He just fucks around with
the thing is,
meanings of words, changes them.
discernible's right. Look, I disagree with discernible, but he's actually right. We weren't talking
There's
about
no rhyme or reason to what he's
It wasn't about God. It was never about
your
God.
fucking time in a mind fuck. That's
No, I like mind fucks. I like mind fucks because I like to escape
I
them.
know, but if a mind fuck doesn't have like any end to it, then it's just what the fuck is the point?
Wait, so
But I already told you what the
discussion
end
was
is.
never about God. The discussion was never about God.
It was about God. It absolutely was about God.
So,
not in that context.
So if it wasn't about God,
the necessary being is God.
that's what I had also assumed. So if the necessary being isn't God, what do you mean by necessary being? Please elaborate and explain what that is to you.
A being that can't become what it's not.
A being that can't become what it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be any being at all?
Well,
what can become?
You're alive, right?
Yeah,
and
I'm alive.
You can become dead. Your physical body.
Nah, he's trolling. He's trolling.
No, that's an example of you
Okay,
becoming what
that's
you're
what I'm
not.
saying.
You're alive and you can become
He
dead.
has to be, or he's.
What's the confusion there?
Elaborate. No. You said a being that cannot become. What'd you say? A being that can become what is not. What'd you say?
Yeah, you're alive. You can become dead.
Okay, so I can become what I'm not.
Yeah.
So,
discernible. I got a question.
No, what's your point?
Are the coat hangers still?
You asked me for an example of something becoming what it's not.
So you don't believe that's possible? You don't believe it's possible for people to die?
Oh my God, this is how lost you are in the conversation.
No, you're lost. You said there's no such thing as a being that can become what is not, and you just said I'm alive, but I can become dead. So you just proved yourself wrong. Like what the fuck? Bro, in trying to prove a point to me, you proved that you were wrong.
You're completely lost in the conversation. My whole point is the exact opposite of what you just said.
Okay, please reestablish the
everything
point,
you just said. Just turn it around in your head, okay?
So a being that can become what is not.
If every being can become what it's not.
If every being can become what... Yo, your point keeps changing. Your claim keeps changing.
You're just not listening.
Could you give us an example of a being that can become what it's not?
I just gave CEO one. You're alive, right? You can become dead.
Yeah, that is trolling, bro.
well, if that assumes a bunch of that brings with it a bunch of baggage, discernible. So one of
Sorry,
the
you asked for an example. Was that an example of something becoming what it's not?
But you just said
die?
doesn't follow. That what
Can you
you
die?
just said doesn't
Are
necessarily
life and
follow.
death
Though.
opposites?
Dude, do you want me to mute you?
Are life and death
What
opposites?
you just said, dude.
No,
Both
no.
of you guys, shut the fuck up.
Go
What you
ahead,
just
go ahead.
said doesn't logically follow, because if the God believers are right and the soul lives on, then you're wrong.
Oh, is your body immortal?
Well, now you're Now you see. Now you're adding and moving the goalposts.
2 minutes previously.
You can become dead. Your physical body.
Objects is so horny to be wrong.
Okay, so you want
Did
to
you
be
think?
specific.
Did you
here,
think I was
discernible.
denying an immortal
Let me. Yeah,
soul?
yeah.
I obviously wasn't. I'm talking about your
you
body.
said you are dead. You said
talking
you
about your
as
body.
a being are dead. Okay.
Talking about your
Now,
body.
if you define being as just the corpus,
I'm
just
talking
the
about your body.
No.
Your physical body.
No.
Your physical body.
No.
Your physical body.
No.
Pathology or stupidity.
It's not just your
Dude.
body.
I don't know why you need to like obfuscate this. I'm talking about your body.
Okay, discernible. When you say you as
talking
a human
about your
being,
body.
they are more than their. Okay, do you understand that?
Why are you obfuscating? I'm talking about your body.
When you say you,
I'm talking about your body.
A human being is more than just his body. He
I'm
has
talking
a
about
mind.
your body.
Okay. Well, you should have said that, because that's not
I'm
what
talking
a
about
human
your
being
body. I'm
is.
saying it now, but you
A
want to
human
continue
being is not
obfuscating.
just his body. So what you just said didn't work.
You're obfuscating.
No, you're saying
obfuscating.
when you die,
You're
that's you
obfuscating.
become dead and you're not alive anymore. Well, the you is
You're
happens to be
obfuscating.
your soul. It happens to be your mind. Do you know that?
That's great. You're obfuscating.
Okay, so you don't understand that.
You're just
So let me teach you.
obfuscating. I'm talking about your body.
Okay, so now you're goalpost shifting because you've just realized you stepped in a pile of shit.
Once more for the road, dumbass.
You can become dead. Your physical body.